I'm a bad motherfucker.
Our final story. This is a labor story that I think is flying under the radar, but I thought it tied in very well with a lot of what's going on right now. We have Davos promoting its idea of a carbon neutral future. And you've got the German farmers and French farmers protesting in solidarity with them against new policies that are really designed to make the kind of farming they do less profitable. And anyone who speaks out against it is going to be called a right-winger.
Right.
They're going to be called fascist, Nazi adjacent. But let's see why really a lot of working people wind up having issues with these policies.
Wait,
let's see how this plays out on the ground. So here we go. From Rishi Sunak, a big day for UK Steel. We've agreed a joint $1 billion investment with Tata Steel to save thousands of British jobs and secure the future of the steel industry in Wales. This follows the £4 billion investment we secured from Tata companies in July to create 4,000 jobs. Now, this is not that long ago. This is September 15th, 2023. This is about 5 months ago. Tata Steel to shut down Port Talbot blast furnaces, putting 3,000 jobs at risk. The owners...
Wait, you see that? UK is the only country...
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
The owners of Port Talbot Steelworks have rejected a trade union plan designed to keep its blast furnaces running, putting nearly 3,000 jobs at risk and leaving the UK on course to become the only major economy unable to make steel from scratch.
You did it.
Rather ironic from the country once known for British steel. In what one union said would be a crushing blow to workers in UK steelmaking, Port Talbot's parent company, the Indian-owned Tata Steel, told workers' representatives that it could no longer afford to continue production at the loss-making plant in South Wales while it completed a 4-year transition plan to greener production.
Nice.
The company, which is getting £500 million from the government to help with that plan, broke the news during a summit at the 5-star St. James Court Hotel in London, which is owned by the Tata Group. I guess the hotels are doing better. The shadow business secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, lashed out at the government for providing Tata with funds to pay for its green transition plans without securing a guarantee on jobs. He said the government's strategy was, quote, £500 million for 3,000 job losses. Under the Tata plan, which is expected to be announced formally on Friday, Port Talbot's blast furnaces will shut down while the company builds electric arc furnaces, which make steel from recycled scrap a greener and cheaper process. The Guardian understands that about 200 jobs could be saved under a proposal to keep some of the site's mills open to roll steel slab. But the decision is a huge blow for a town where the local economy is so heavily dependent on a single factory. The community and GMB unions had put forward a staggered transition plan designed to provide immediate protection for workers. Under their proposals, the blast furnaces would have remained open during the transition, with at least one continuing to operate until 2032. But at a meeting in London on Thursday, Tata Steel is understood to have told union representatives that the proposal was unaffordable given Port Talbot's losses estimated at £1 million a day. The UK's only other blast furnaces at Scunthorpe are also slated for shutdown during a similar, potentially lengthy transition process to electric arc furnaces. That would leave the UK as the only G20 country that cannot make steel from raw materials. Shutting down Port Talbot's 2 blast furnaces would mark the latest grim milestone in a decades-long decline that has seen production fall from 25 million tons in 1971 to 6 million tons, while employment in the sector has slumped from 250,000 to just under 34,000. The industry trade body UK Steel said earlier this year that 2024 was a crossroads for the British steel industry, at which it could either enjoy a renaissance or continue in managed decline. Once up and running, this is the best part. Once up and running, new electric arc furnaces will be capable of replicating some of the higher quality grades produced by blast furnaces, typically for use in the automotive industry and industrial processes such as food and drinks canning, but making higher grades of steel that way is more difficult, meaning the UK could also lose out on the ability to make some products, relying instead on imports.
This is to make them Brenter from their
yeah,
Brexit.
this sounds like a
Brentrans.
great deal for the British people.
So they're going to be dependent on other countries, and they can't do their Brexit thing that they never did, I guess.
A government spokesperson said, quote, "We are determined to secure a sustainable and competitive future for the UK steel sector, which is why we have committed £500 million of UK government support that will transform the site and protect thousands of jobs, both in Port Talbot and throughout the supply chain." So this is from David Osland. Tata Steel bosses asked for and got a £500 million state subsidy to make 3,000 workers redundant. That's the superior efficiency of the private sector for you.
Yeah, Rick Overton just texted me that Tata means goodbye. So anyways, Tata.
Yeah, Tata jobs. John Jones. In Britain, no group has been more savagely betrayed than the manufacturing industrial working class. Same in America, buddy. Since 1979, UK governments of both parties have let that capacity be either closed or sold off to foreign owners who care little for Britain. From Simru, Wales, Tata Steel doesn't care about Welsh steelworkers. If Tory Thatcher hadn't privatized steel, it would be publicly owned. Time to buy out Port Talbot Steelworks for public ownership to protect steelmaking in Wales. If Wales were independent, it would never have been privatized. Freedom!
You think Lotus Eaters will pick this one up?
They need Mel Gibson in blue face paint. Just in, Tata Steel are set to shut their blast furnaces at Port Talbot with 3,000 jobs gone across the UK. And is this what net zero looks like? Net zero jobs.
Yes. EU. Back to the EU.
And but everybody who's against these changes is an ist and a phobe. And you'll hear all of that lecturing coming from coastal elites who don't have jobs like this. They don't know anybody with jobs like this. And they don't give a shit about people with jobs like this.
I have a buddy who's a real rich guy that he got rich selling domain names back in the day, like real estate.
Yeah. Right.
A lot of people made a lot of money off that.
I know.
He goes, I don't think I'm worried about America. I said, then he transitioned into sending American jobs to other countries. You know, Americans are lazy. Because I don't care about that. I'm a global citizen.
That's it. That's how these people think.
Or think globally. When you have money, I'm a citizen of the world. I don't care. Nationalism is kind of racist, really, when you think about it.
Well, I just said. I mean, they want to impose that ethos on the world population,
right.
Even though it doesn't prove any material benefit to most of the world population. And that's why it becomes a very difficult sell when the rubber hits the road. You know, all of this priming, you know, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s about the green movement and anti-pollution and conservation, right? I mean, certain people bought it, certain people didn't, but it was all well and good until it came time to actually make the transition, which is going to cost a lot of people their livelihoods. And now you're at that sort of breaking point. I mean, we've actually been here for quite a while. This is exactly how Brexit happened. It's exactly how a guy like Trump won here. When you just see the just open disregard for the consequences of these decisions on the working class populations of your state. Obviously their move is to brand anyone who has a problem with this as sort of retrograde or unscientific or, Luddite, right? But
Racist.
that's just not going to hold. Right, right. And it can't hold. And at the end of the day, their case was not made strongly to the point where it can sustain this quote unquote transition, because there are too many people who fall through the cracks. And, once too many people fall through the cracks, the center can no longer hold. And, they got a mulligan with COVID. That's how Biden was able to barely eke out a victory. But that wouldn't have happened absent
Sure.
a once in a century pandemic. And unless this disease X is coming sooner than later, they're not going to have that to save their ass this time, which is why Biden's prospects are looking increasingly dim. But yeah, it's all about just priming people for their own demise, right? You're basically training people to accept their own sort of downfall. That's largely what Davos is there for, right? It's there to explain to people how this quote transition into a lower quality of life is actually virtuous and for your own good.
Well, you're guilty. You're born. It's an old religious trick of you're guilty of things that before you were even born, and you got to atone for it. And
yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that so many of these ideas have gained currency at a moment when you have record high numbers of people who are atheists.
Yeah,
it's a substitute. Right. It's a substitute for religion. People feel a need to have rules and precepts and moral guidance. And if you don't get it in one form, they'll create it in another form. And the religion of coastal elites in this, let's face it, that's mostly who we're talking about, is to signal virtue around climate and tolerance. And this is the way they avoid talking about the economic consequences of the decisions that they're making. It's not set aside. I know we have people who litigate climate change and the human causing. Set that aside. You can, as you see here, they took 500 million pounds and gave it to this company. And the union had a proposal for how you would do this. If I'm understanding correctly, they didn't argue not to do this transition. They presented a way to do it that would not throw all these people out of work. And they chose to do it the other way. And it's always going to fall on the workers. Why aren't they saying, you know what? We have people running around with the personal wealth of a country. Why don't we tax these people and put that money into these workers and their communities? They're not going to do that. And as Keaton often points out, a lot of people like to talk about the failures of communism. And hey, I talk about that. Anyone who watches our show knows I'm not very supportive of that for other reasons. But they never want to talk about the failures of capitalism. Isn't this a failure of capitalism?
Yeah, are we in success right now? Is that what this is?
Right.
By the way, net zero, that's Bill Gates. Net zero made up by Bill Gates.
Right. Well, as with many other things. Marx, who I believe got a lot of things wrong. He got one thing right. That late stage capitalism, you would see capital eat the state. Yep. That with nothing left to loot in the society, it would loot the treasury of the government. So that's what you're seeing with the government paying a steelworks to throw these people out of work. They're taking the people's tax money to take away their jobs. Now, this is what Marx would say. Yeah. Right, exactly. This is what Marx said would happen in the late stages of capitalism. And here we are. And this is in a country that relative to us has some elements of democratic socialism, and their state is still being devoured by capital. Keaton?
Well, there's no self-regulating mechanism within capitalism to actually stop that. Any measure you take to counter that is by definition anti-capitalist, because you are pulling back on a system that is built on exponential multiplication. right? There is no check. There is no emergency exit switch within that system. Capitalism is built on exponential growth. It only gets faster as it goes along. There's nothing in it to slow it down except a democratic check on it, which some call socialism. I don't really care what you call it, but it clearly needs a democratic check. And as for the sort of green religion, that's sort of a false religion pushed by the wealthy because their actual only religion is money. There are ways to help the environment. There are ways to make Earth a more habitable place for human beings. But many of those would cost rich people money. Perfect example. Okay. We don't have to talk about all this innovation and, we're going to do hybrid cars and, EVs and reusable bags. How about just a 4-day work week? How about a 4-day work week? Anybody who lives in or around a major city will tell you if you had one fewer day of rush hour in New York or Los Angeles, you would see air quality increase dramatically. We know this because one effect of the COVID lockdowns is you saw massive levels of environmental healing. Just
very
from the
quickly
Earth being left the fuck alone for 7 weeks. 7 weeks, we saw vegetation and fish return to Venice. We saw the ozone actually start to heal. We saw stunning crystal clear views of the Manhattan skyline from miles away. People who could never see it before all of a sudden could see it. Now, I'm not saying we all locked down again for that reason, but I'm saying, what about a 4-day work week?
How about working from home?
That would help the world out quite a bit, but you know what? That would cost the oligarchs something. It would cost the 1% something because they wouldn't have their ants hustling to make them money that 5th day. And so they won't do that. So instead, they'll impose these bullshit, reusable bags, 5 cents for a paper bag, no handles on the fucking bags, EV, cars, and tax breaks for stores that make a parking spot for an EV. It's all just masturbation.
Right.
If they really wanted to help the environment, there are ways to do that. That are less imposing on people's lives, but that would cost not the average person money. It would cost the bosses money.
Exactly. We were talking about that the other day when Jimmy was in the studio. Most of this recycling is bullshit. Most of all this stuff you're sorting out, which apparently here, I'm shocked they don't find you. Like in New York, this is a big part of a super's job. On garbage day,
Jimmy,
they got to separate the plastics and the cardboard, and they'll give you a
LA
ticket
is
for that.
Particularly well run.
And I guess they can't even manage that. But they'll give you a big fine, and most plastic is not recyclable because it's not compatible. Like one kind of plastic is not like another kind of plastic. It's a different composition.
It's not cost effective is what it is.
It's not. It does. You'd have to hire people to really figure out the chemical composition. So it's busy work. It's a waste of time. Like, how do you not see these Davos initiatives, which never go after the consumption of the rich, which is the majority of the consumption? How do you see it as anything other than convincing people that it's their religious duty to accept a lower standard of living while theirs remains the same?
Right.
All right. And I think on that cheery note, we're going to wish you a happy weekend. We'll get to it. I'm going to be leaving for a few days. I will be back for the live show on the 27th. Then I will be in the studio, sometimes hosting, sometimes sitting in until February 9th. Kurt, where are you going to be?
Nashville Zanies, 26th through 28th. I'm
going back? Weren't you just there?
Dallas,
just
I was
there,
just
right?
in.
Okay.
Now I'm going to Nashville Zanies.
All right. What dates?
26th through 28th, but go to Kurt Metzger Comedy on Instagram, and my dates are up there, and go get a ticket and come out. That's a good one.
All right, you hear that? Go to Kurt Metzger Comedy. He'll be in Nashville, 26th, 28th, cutting his country album, Zanies.
I'll be doing my country album, finally.
Finally. Hey, man, it's never too late. Keaton, where can they find you?
Do Dissidence, YouTube, and Rumble. And tomorrow night, I'll be in the parking lot of the SBNU Arena in Manchester, New Hampshire, mixing it up with the Deplorables. I'll be shit-talking with the Trumpers on their way into the rally as part of our election coverage. So come on out and hang out in 8-degree weather with me and all the MAGA faithful.
while I'm down in NOLA eating some king cake. I will be in NOLA this week. I will not be appearing at a comedy club, though. Everyone, I just want to say thank you. The Jimmy audience has been so welcoming and supportive, and I look forward to seeing you all again. Have a great weekend. To Misha.
All right. Thank you, Russ. Thank you for your 2 weeks here. Let's go to a quick break, and I'll be back to finish Super Chats.
Things people love about you is they believe you tell it like it is.
Says it like it is. He speaks the truth.
It's about time we have a man like Trump in here. They ain't afraid to tell it like it is, man.
We like him. He tells it like it is.
He says what he means. I honestly believe he's telling the truth.
She has no natural talent to be president.
She's very talented, and she has a husband that I also like very much.
Hillary Clinton was the worst Secretary of State in the history of the United States.
Hillary Clinton, how did she do as Secretary of State? Probably above and beyond everybody else.
Let's say Hillary is president.
Hillary Clinton, I think, is a terrific woman. I think she really works hard, and I think she does a good job, and I like her. I will build the wall, and Mexico's going to pay for it, and they'll be happy to pay for it.
I'm not going to pay for that fucking wall.
This guy used a filthy, disgusting word on television, and he should be ashamed of himself, and he should apologize, okay?
Listen, you motherfuckers.
I'm going to bomb the shit out of them. We'll beat the shit out of them. Political bullshit.
You're not going to raise that fucking price, you understand?
Donald, true or false, you've said the government should pay for everyone's health care?
That's false.
You've never said that.
Everybody's got to be covered.
Universal health care.
I am going to take care of everybody. Who pays for it? The government's going to pay for it, but we're going to save so much money on the other side. He said I was in favor of Libya. I never discussed that subject. I was in favor of Libya. We would be so much better off if Gaddafi were in charge right now.
Gaddafi in Libya is killing thousands of people. We should go in. We should stop this guy, which would be very easy and very quick. Stop him from doing it and save these lives. They're here illegally. You take them, they have to go back.
We have to show some compassion.
Right,
we just can't throw everybody out.
They have
So you're going to split up families.
Chuck,
you're going to deport children.
Chuck, no. We're going to keep the families together. We have to keep the families together.
But you're going to keep them together out.
But they have to go.
How do you throw somebody out that's lived in this country for 20 years?
North Korea has nukes. Japan has a problem with that. I mean, they have a big problem with it. Maybe they would, in fact, be better off if they defend themselves from North Korea. Maybe we would be better off. Including with nukes. Yes, including with nukes.
And they said, I want Japan to nuke. I want Japan to get nuclear weapons. Give me a break.
But if you say to Japan, yes, it's fine, you get nuclear weapons, South Korea, you as well, and Saudi Arabia says we want them too.
Can I be honest with you? It's going to happen anyway. So it's only a question of time.
I'm a conservative person.
The Republicans are just too crazy right. I mean, just what's going on is just nuts.
Bush says, I do not believe he's a true conservative. These people are stupid.
Do you identify more as a Democrat or a Republican?
In many cases, I probably identify more as a Democrat. The economy does better under the Democrats than the Republicans. I don't know anything about David Duke, okay? I don't know anything about what you're even talking about with white supremacy or white supremacists.
What do you see as the biggest problem with the Reform Party right now?
Well, you've got David Duke just joined, a bigot, a racist, a problem. I mean, this is not exactly the people you want in your party. Wages too high. We're not going to be able to compete against the world. I hate to say it, but we have to leave it the way it is. I don't know how people make it on $7.25 an hour. I would like to see an increase of some magnitude.
Do you believe voters have a right to see your tax returns before they make a final decision?
I don't think they do.
If I decide to run for office, I'll produce my tax returns, absolutely.
There have been many presidents that have not shown their tax returns.
Actually, every single nominee since 1976 has released their tax
returns. Before
returns.
1976?
Nobody was worse to women or abused women more than Bill Clinton.
Look at the trouble Bill Clinton got into with something that was totally unimportant.
She's married to a man who got impeached.
They tried to impeach him, which was nonsense.
He was impeached for lying.
I'm the only one on the stage that said we should not go into Iraq.
Are you for invading Iraq?
Yeah, I guess so. You know, I wish it was. I wish the first time it was done correctly.
Honesty, Carter once said, "I'll never lie to you." Would you say that, the American people?
I would never lie.
When I'm president, I'm a different person. I can do anything. I can be the most politically correct person that you've ever seen. I can be the most politically correct person in the world. And I can be the opposite.
The president has to be a great leader, and you have to lead by example.
I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
Like to punch him in the face. I'd look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers.
Blood coming out of her, wherever.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay?
I don't know what I said. This guy will say anything.
Certain that Donald Trump has ever read outside of his own is the book of Hitler's speeches he kept next to his bed in the 1990s, according to his ex-wife. His ex-wife, he was very pissed when she released that information, okay? Because at that time he was still liberal. He didn't want people to know it at that time. So somehow she fell down the stairs and cracked her head open, right? All right, so we're going to get into this, and I'm going to show you this, all right? 92-year-old C-SPAN caller said he met Trump's father, a fan of Hitler and dictators. During C-SPAN's Washington Journal call-in segment, Pete, who identified himself as a 92-year-old from West Palm Beach, Florida, said Trump's father, Fred Trump, visited his village and was a fan of Hitler and dictators. Pete implied Trump got his views of dictators from his father. Now, keep in mind that Donald Trump was a libtard his entire life. Children are often heavily influenced by the views of their parents. Trump's father and Trump were sued for racial discrimination in housing, and Fred was once arrested at a Ku Klux Klan rally for failing to disperse. The 1927 article reporting the arrest doesn't make it clear Fred Trump's status or association with the Klan. Don't his actual loyalties to the brewing years of World War II if they happen to live in the greater New York City region. New York and its suburbs in Long Island and New Jersey had a vibrant community of first and second generation German Americans, the latter having included Fred Trump Sr., a rising star in real estate and retailing. Also active in New York, New Jersey region was the German American Bund, or Amerika Deutscher Bund, an organization that supported Adolf Hitler's Nazi Party and the goals and aspirations of the new Germany. The Bund had been created in May 1933 on the orders of German Deputy Führer Rudolf Hess. The first Bund leader was German immigrant Heinrich Heinz Spacknobel, who initially called his group the Friends of New Germany. In fact, the Bund was nothing more than an overseas extension of the German Nazi Party, and it took its orders directly from Berlin. Outside of the town in Windham, on American soil no less, right? The height of the Bund's activities was a February 20, 1930 rally at New York City's Madison Square Garden. This is the rally that I'm talking about right here, okay? This is the rally that Enlightened Master is telling you that Donald Trump's father was in, okay? Sir Norman Vincent Peale was Donald Trump's 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemason pastor. This is the seal of the 33rd degree. It's also the family crest of Donald J. Trump. Okay, Albert Pike, who is the most famous Scottish Rite Freemason of all time, was the head of the Knights of the Golden Order, who later changed their name to the Ku Klux Klan. I'm going to provide it. Okay. I'm not going to be nasty to people. I'm just going to provide the information. All right, that's what I'm going to do. The elder Trump was publicly, he was even sued for it, publicly known to be a racist, and he refused to rent his apartments in Queens and Brooklyn to African Americans. Wow, that must be a coincidence. In 1927, there were few organizations for far-right extremists like Fred Trump to join. One was the KKK, which had its roots in the post-Civil War Reconstruction South. Another was Italian lender Benito Mussolini's overseas Fascisti, which was primarily composed of Italian immigrants to the United States. By the early 1930s, far-right wingers in the American North were fast to embrace the Nazis, and Kunzbund was able to ready to answer the call and begin recruiting in its ranks. Fred Trump's FBI file, which includes the 1927 arrest at the KKK march, appears to be missing his pre-war and immediate post-war year activities. The file does not resume until the 1960s, when the FBI began monitoring the elder Trump's association with mafia syndicates in New York. Brother, remember I told you and I've showed you unequivocally that his brother had everything to do with the murder of and the torture of Nikola Tesla. In New York, old man Trump also suspiciously volunteered after dodging World War II draft to construct Navy barracks and garden apartments in at least 3 highly sensitive Navy ports in Chester, Pennsylvania, and Norfolk and Newport News, Virginia. Yeah, that's right. He was a draft dodger, to all you Trump dodgers out there. All 3 ports saw thousands of Americans and Canadian troops embarked for combat in North Africa and Europe. Some of these ships fell prey to German U-boats, which received intelligence on the Allied ship movements from Nazi agents in the very same port areas where old man Trump so generously bid on construction contracts with the Navy. Right here, with the Navy. Let me repeat his treason again, okay? All 3 ports saw thousands of American and Canadian troops embarked for combat in North Africa and Europe. Some of these troop ships fell prey to German U-boats. In other words, Americans got killed because of Donald Trump's father, which received intelligence on the Allied ship movements from Nazi agents in the very same port areas where old man Trump so generously bid on construction contracts with the Navy.
I suppose old man Trump knows just how much racial hate he stirred up in the blood parts of the folks in New York State. He drawed that colored line that we fought in the last war, and we ain't got no home in this world anymore. Beach Haven ain't my home. I just can't pay the rent. My money's down the drain, and my soul is badly bent. Beach Haven looks like heaven where no black folks gone to roam. No, 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 old man Trump. Beach Haven ain't my home. No.
Hey, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there for more AM Joy and the rest of MSNBC. And click on any of the videos right here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. And you can get more videos from MSNBC for free every day with our newsletter. Just visit